Today I'm talking all about Movieland near Lake Garda in Italy. I visited on Sunday the 13th of July 2025 for the first time. I went with my partner, and from what I'd heard before going, it was like a mini version of Universal. So that was the main impression that I had, and we weren't really too sure what to expect. I've never actually visited a real Universal park myself. The only place similar I have gone to are the studios at Disneyland Paris, so I don't have much to compare it to. And I'm not going to be analysing every single little detail and ride in this video, but it's going to be more about what we thought of the attractions that we went on and our experience generally. So there will be spoilers about certain attractions, but if you wish to skip parts, you should be able to use the progress bar if you'd like to keep certain parts a mystery. So let's get started. Now, as of 2025, it costs €34 for a single adult ticket, which in today's money is about €31.20, as of mid-July 2025. And we opted for a 2-day, 2-park basic ticket, which is what it was called on the website. Now, these allowed us to visit Movieland on one day and Caneva World, the water park next door, on another, but not both on the same day, which is another ticket option for you. So the tickets we chose cost €46 per person, and value-wise, I thought that was really good, as we did want a full day at both. Now, for our 2-day tickets, we had to print them off before we went, and outside the entrance of Movieland, we went to the ticket booth. The lady there took our photos and printed them off and stuck them to our paper tickets, which we then had to look after as we needed them for the Caneva Day. And there was a free shuttle bus from where we were staying at Peschiera del Garda to the Caneva and Movieland Resort, which was really, really handy for us because our hotel was literally a minute walk from the bus stops. Now, there are some toilets before you go in, which you're basically getting thrown straight in to the sort of immersive theming. They were all crime themed. So there were tiles on the floor representing blood and a person outline on the floor. And there's also the men and women's signs above the 2 doors, and they have like crime film, horror film characters on them. Now, there's a really lovely entrance plaza at Movieland and a really nice sort of entrance arch. It is, of course, a little bit of an echo of Universal, but it's really nice, and I do like that they have made it their own. And if you get there ready for the opening of the park, and if you wait for the doors to open, they play a countdown track, and it's pretty cool waiting for that and then seeing the doors open and you know it's fine for you to go in. There's a really cool fountain as you enter the main street, and the main street is small, but it fits the size of the park really well, and the theming is awesome. There's a short welcome show featuring characters including Charlie Chaplin, and at one point you see Charlie Chaplin dancing with, is it Sandy, the main character girl from Greece? So it's quite funny seeing them dance together. And there are some English worded songs in the welcome show, such as Hooray for Hollywood, but all of the spoken elements are in Italian. But this didn't detract from the show if you don't understand Italian, and it is just a really nice short intro to the park and your day. It sort of gets you in the mood. And on the street itself there are some small food outlets with very, very reasonable prices. So the main street itself, just really, really nicely themed, and yeah, just loved it. The theming around the entire park looks great, and nothing from what I could remember looked worn or faded or broken. And there was some large theming and really immersive areas, and I particularly liked the pretend Hollywood landscape at the end of Main Street, behind where the stage is. And attractions start as soon as you enter the park. Now, one we did do near the entrance later in the day was the Holmes Hotel, which is a walkthrough style scare attraction based on a US serial killer. Now, walkthroughs aren't on all day. When I double checked the times online, it seemed to state that they start from 1 p.m. Why that is, I don't know. And we did a family tour, so not every single tour through this attraction is fully sort of scare mode. Now, for us, even though I'm not a big fan of jump scares and the real deep horror, that probably would have been a more effective experience for someone that doesn't understand the language. because even though the guy spoke in both Italian and English when he was welcoming people in to the attraction, to let you know that it was a family tour, no jump scares, the whole tour, understandably so, was all in Italian. So you're sort of walking through this dark attraction, this house and like spooky garden and kitchen parts and all this. And it's interesting to see, but it would have been, of course, a lot more enjoyable if you understood what they were saying, or if there was the scare elements there to kind of add that atmosphere. But it was fine. It was fine as it was. But of course, as a family show, it's not one we would have repeated because it just was missing something for us. A kids' attraction we tried for fun in this area was Phantasmic, which is a slightly spooky, dark walkthrough. Now, this pleasantly surprised us as it's actually really dark in there, and you can barely see at times, and there were a couple of loud noises that did make me jump a little. There was even a rope bridge to cross in near darkness, and I'm surprised that it was a kids' attraction, to be honest. And there were a couple of little slides as well, so all in all, for a kids' attraction, it was great. Now, we were the only ones in the attraction, so as two people in our early 30s, we would have felt awkward going through, of course, if it was full of kids. The oddest attraction we went on, for me, was the Hollywood Tower. Not odd in a bad way, but just different. A walk-on for us. We sat in the seats and were raised up the structure. Now, once you get to the top, you're slowly moved forward behind the Hollywood Tower's sign, and the music starts playing from Tower of Terror, or at least a very similar soundtrack. A couple of the sign's letters drop and go wonky, and then you drop vertically before levelling out on a curve and ending up on your back in the seating. It's short, it's weird, and I did bang my head a little, but I think it's great that they have something different. And of course, you can tell the ride that it's based on. So some of my favourite theming was in the corner for Little Italy, which is actually near where we had our lunch. And bearing in mind that we were eating in a theme park, there were actually options all around the park for things that weren't just fried chicken or burger and chips, such as fish and chips, tacos, croissant wedges, corn dogs, and lots more, honestly. There was lots of variety and prices were good, way better than Alton Towers prices when you convert the currency, and the quality was so much better than UK attraction theme park offerings that I've tried. We ate at Alfonso's, which had Italian offerings, and we opted for piadinas, which are Italian flatbreads, like wraps, folded over and filled with typical Italian-style fillings such as rocket, dried meats, cheeses, that kind of thing. You could get these in a meal deal with a dessert and a drink. My partner had cannoli for dessert, and I had chocolate salami, which was amazing. The taste and texture was just like a chocolate cookie dough with biscuit chunks in it. So a piadina main dessert and drink deal was €13, which works out at about £11.27 as of recording this. And the quality was awesome. And it didn't take long for the food to be prepared either, bearing in mind that the park was quiet. We thought it was great value for money and were very, very impressed. And even the theming inside Alfonso's was good too. I want to talk about our favourite ride, and that was Magma 2.1. And this was a lot more action-packed than we thought it was going to be, and it was so much fun. We waited about 20 minutes, and I really like the batching system that they have for this and other rides at the park. So when you get to the end of the queue, a turnstile counts down the maximum number of people for each batch, and then there are seats that map out the available seats on the ride vehicle, and you sit and wait on these until the next vehicle is available. The ride vehicles themselves are open-sided, military-style off-road trucks, and this really is an off-road adventure. The driver speeds off straight away, and there are various sections mimicking parts from movies and showcasing special effects, including a dark ride area. There is fire, where you really feel the heat, and lots of water gush and splash moments, and most people on board do get quite wet. And that was such a welcome experience in the hot temperatures. At one point you drive through a splash zone and then the driver reverses back in the water to potentially get you wet again. It was so much fun, like I've already said. It was really surprising and everyone on board was loving it. We did ride it again later on in the day, and for some reason it seemed a little shorter to us and not quite as thrilling, but I think this was because we already knew what happened, so the surprise element had gone. But nevertheless, it was still a great experience second time round, and Magma 2.1 is a definite attraction to recommend if you visit, because we absolutely loved it. A new attraction that opened in 2024, I believe, was Disaster the Blockbuster Tour, which we did give a go. This is a bit like the Studio Lot Tour from Disneyland Paris, and there are still fire and water special effects, but you don't go as fast as Magma. It's a lot more gentle in that respect. You stop at various movie moments, such as a crazy guy with an axe who chases after the bus, Bonnie and Clyde, and even a shaman who starts off being a bit imposing and then just starts dancing, which is quite funny. At one point you tour around what I believe were mainly replicas of vehicles from films, as well as a couple of actual Movieland ride vehicles. And there is a dark ride element where you go inside a large show building. There are screens either side, making it look as if you are in a tornado. And the platform the bus is on moves and judders as well, and I think there were wind effects. So in total it was really quite effective. Throughout the ride, there is a narrator on screen in Italian, but there are English subtitles. And whilst we enjoyed the ride, it definitely wasn't as good as Magma for us. Another similar attraction in terms of speed, action and the likelihood of getting soaked was the Kit Superjet ride. It was loosely based on a film with David Hasselhoff, I think, because he was on videos in the queue line. I'm not a film buff, so I couldn't tell you what that would be. It was again about another 20-minute wait for us, but the 20-minute waits we had for this in Magma did not drag or go slowly. Now, the Superjet ride takes place in the water of one of the outdoor theatres, and you get a super speedy ride round on a big jet ski boat thing for a few minutes, and you are given life jackets to wear. Good thing too is despite holding on, you really do get thrown around. And absolutely soaked. But no one was overboard on our boat, and I don't think anyone ever really goes overboard, so all good there. There's speed, sharp turns, lots of getting soaked by the water, and a little dark ride section as well, which made this another favourite. And it was really cool seeing the set of the Rambo-based show which was on that day. After the Rambo show is on in the afternoon though, or whatever show may be put on there if it changes in the future, the ride does close, and I don't believe it reopens for the rest of the day, which is understandable as you can't just get the boats back out in the water, of course, they need to reset everything. Now, myself and my partner, we're not show or meet and greet people at parks, we prefer just rides and enjoying the walk around and the theming. But we did watch the last 10 minutes of the Rambo show later in the day, and the effects used and the efforts from the actors were really good. The stunts were amazing, the physical sort of acting and mock combat was really good. It's still not something for us that we would watch the whole thing of, but if you are into shows and into the whole sort of action thing and seeing all the special effects, then it's definitely one to recommend. From what I can remember, I actually can't remember, and it's only been a few days, if English translations were also used alongside Italian. But regardless, you can kind of course, follow what's happening from what you can see. And we were pleasantly surprised by the quality of this. And this is one of a few different shows on throughout the day at the park. For example, there was a Medusa show also on elsewhere. So if shows are your thing, there's a few to choose from, and I don't think you'd be disappointed. But just bear in mind, I'm not sure if all of them have English alongside Italian, and the seating was almost full, so it looks like the shows are definitely popular. Now, if you want to tie in your trip with views of Lake Garda, then I would recommend going on the monorail. Whilst you get the impression like it might be for kids, it's definitely worth going up regardless of your age to see the views, as they're awesome. And it's great seeing the park from higher up too. There's a spoken audio track all the way round, and all of it was in English. I believe this may have been because it was located in or near the sort of England area, and this is where you could get your fish and chips from the Red London bus. In the England area, there was a fairly new attraction, which was a complete mystery to us, K6, the Royal Intelligence Agency. You're batched inside a tailor's shop where there is a small pre-show, and again another short pre-show when you move through into a weapons room. You then walk to the submarine dock that you see in front of you and sit inside the submarine. Once on board, there are sound effects, and you really do get a sense that it has been sort of sized up to be very similar to actually being in a real submarine. And the submarine tips slightly during the ride, it moves, seats shake, and the windows project different parts of your underwater journey. And you do get wet. There's lots of water seeping in on you, and some seats get wetter than others. It was certainly a different attraction, and it was a complete surprise to us. we did not know what it was at all before we went in, and I'm really glad we did it. It was also quite nice to have a sit down, and it was definitely enjoyable. And something that was nice to see at the park was a good mixture of things for everyone. There were kids' rides, family rides, and really thrilling sort of action-based attractions, as well as the shows and roaming actors, and really good theming. So people of all ages and families can definitely enjoy a day here. And speaking of kids' rides, there was an area that reminded us of Ugland, Alton Towers, with giant bones and dinosaurs as well. The log flume was here, and it was a good log flume, standard, but we enjoyed it, and it was walk-on. We also quickly sampled another walk-on, Octopus, a Sizzler-style flat ride. Now, I've seen some photos online where it shows the cars moving up in the air, but when we went on it, it just operated like your standard Sizzler flat ride, but the theming was good and the ride length wasn't too short. There is a launch/drop tower, I say that because it does both, at Movieland, and it's based on a space shuttle, and we only had about a 5-minute wait for this, and it was great. You get launched right up, a couple of little bobs, and then you get dropped all the way down, not before a moment of enjoying the park's views at the top. I definitely preferred this to the drop tower at Gardaland, but I will save that for another video. And near the drop tower was a 4D cinema or slight flying theatre attraction, completely based on Back to the Future, where you're given 3D glasses to wear. We didn't have to wait too long for this, and again you had the turnstile batch system as well, which I'm a fan of. And there was really good theming as you go through, pre-shows with subtitles, and overall it was okay. My main issue with this was that the 3D scenes you were looking at just looked a little blurry, so it was kind of hard to really focus on them fully, and they definitely could have done with being clearer. And I don't think it was the fault of the glasses either, so it's definitely still one to give a go, but it wasn't our favourite. And of course, we tried the Movieland's roller coaster, Diabolic. This is located right near the entrance to Caneva World, so as you're on the ride, you can see the water park slides right next to you. We went on this twice, and both times it was practically walk-on, and again, you get great views of Lake Garda. The first time we went on it though, we had an operator who was either having a really bad day or way too overcautious, as when he checked our restraints, he really pushed them down, and it hurt your lower abdomen, so it was a good job neither of us needed a wee. This is a suspended coaster, and the seats face both forwards and backwards. You are taken up a lift hill, held for a few seconds before rushing back down through the station and then through a cobra roll, I believe, and a vertical loop before going back up another lift hill before rushing back down again, and of course you're then in the opposite direction and doing the layout in reverse. It is a good coaster, and I don't remember experiencing a rattle or finding it rough or banging my head, but we were just surprised that it didn't get more queues. Now, I wanted to mention our most disappointing attractions of the day. It doesn't mean that they would be bad for everyone, just that they weren't really ones for us. We did go on the driving cars attraction known as Route 66, and I know it's more one for kids, but I just wanted to give it a try. You have a steering wheel, but there's really no point even using it because it doesn't really impact the driving of the car, and there wasn't much in the way of theming, and the layout wasn't particularly interesting, but I'm sure kids as the target audience would enjoy it more. And something else quite disappointing was Pangea. Now, this was a Jeep attraction where you drive the Jeep yourself around the layout, spotting dinosaurs along the way, and you really do drive it yourself. There is a speed limiter, so you can only go very slowly, but there are steep inclines and declines and bumpy track to navigate, as well as a route on the screen to dictate how long you should take to get through each section. There was a narrator, but I can't remember now if it was English. I don't think it was. And the confusing thing here was you had the screen with a track layout and a countdown for each section. Now, I'm guessing the point of it was you had to successfully drive through each section within the time limit, because at the end you got given a score by the time you got back to the sort of offload area. But there was no reference as to why you got a score and why it was good, why it was bad, if it was good or bad, and there wasn't a scoreboard to compare it to anyone else, so it kind of seemed a bit pointless having this scoring system. If it was some kind of interactive shooter or something like that, of course it would have made a lot more sense. The other thing that kind of bothered us a little was you have the main queue where someone in your party can do the driving. But then there's also a separate non-driving queue, which would be shorter to wait in, which is good. But then we had strangers because it was just two of us. And my partner drove, and I think he found it a bit less enjoyable because we had strangers with us on the back. Not that you could do anything wrong driving the Jeep, really, but even so, it's just a bit odd having strangers with you as passengers. And the least enjoyable part of this attraction, though, was the queue. This, for some reason, had the longest wait time for us, bearing in mind the maximum time we waited before this for any attraction was 20 minutes for Magma and the jet ski. The queue line is inside a cave-style structure, and it was so hot and muggy in there, which added to the wait being even worse. There were fans inside, but they didn't really do anything to help the temperature. And for us personally, the waiting time and conditions were not worth the end ride experience. But I do like the idea of it. But when it boils down to it, getting to drive wasn't necessarily as fun as we thought it was going to be. Even though there was a bit of a crowd at park opening, overall the park seemed quite quiet, apart from when you saw everyone gathering for the shows. Alongside the longer wait times I've mentioned, most other attractions were practically walk on, and even though it was quiet, the shows were all still put on and there were still roaming actors who were ready for photo opportunities. I had a selfie with Freddy Krueger, for example, but no, I'm not showing you that photo. Something else to mention is there's even a farewell show at the end of the day on the main street. The only thing I did note, for example, to compare it to Alton Towers, when you go to Towers, you can get into a ride queue just before park close and you can stay in the ride queue. So queues close at park close, but the ride doesn't necessarily. At Movieland, it's different. So rides do close a certain time before the park closes. I'm not sure what time, and I don't know if some close earlier than others. And I'm guessing, of course, this allows the park to properly close at 7, which is its normal closure, I believe. So that is something to remember if you go. You won't necessarily be able to queue and get last rides in the same way as somewhere like Alton Towers, for example. And the weather was really good when we visited too, late 20s and blue skies all day, which made the lower visitor numbers even more surprising. I hope this isn't a reflection of the park's popularity, as it really is an amazing place. Even the price and quality of the merchandise was good. For example, I got a small orange Movieland blanket reduced from the tiny full price of €4.90, which I would have paid, down to €2. I couldn't believe it. And they even had like the squashed penny machines, but of course for euros and cents, which I love to collect, so of course I had to do that as well. But even the t-shirts they had were, I want to say they were like $15.90 or something like that. Honestly, the merchandise that we saw was really, really good quality, and the prices were so reasonable. They were such good value. So overall, we loved our day here. It was definitely so much better than we thought it was going to be on all counts. Rides, wait times, except Pangea, boo. Food, quality, theming, merchandise, roaming actors, crowds, immersion, and pricing. It's definitely one to recommend if you're in the area. And I miss it already. So thank you for watching/listening, and I'll see you next time.